The CNN exclusive now. The Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan, is named on a flight manifest indicating that he flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane in March 2006. A source close to Phelan telling CNN that the secretary was working in the financial sector at the time and was invited to fly on the plane by a CEO. We should note that this flight was months before Epstein was very first publicly suggested by law enforcement as being investigated. And it was years before he was indicted for felony solicitation of prostitution. CNN's Haley Britsky broke the story. Joins us now. Haley, what else are you learning about this flight? I mean, I was alive in 2006. I wasn't flying on Jeffrey Epstein's plane.
Right. So, as you said, March 2006, this is before Epstein was officially indicted. So there's no evidence at this point that Secretary Phelan knew of allegations against Epstein. There's also no allegations of wrongdoing against Phelan himself. But he was one of 13 people on this flight manifest, to include with Epstein and some of his close associates. The rest of the individuals named, there are 6 redacted names on this manifest. We don't know who those individuals are.
Right. Why are they redacting? I thought they're only, if they're survivors, if they're victims.
So that is on the DOJ website, says that to protect identifying information, victims' names, but we don't know who those individuals are. But Secretary Phelan is among several men who work in the financial sector in New York. So a close friend of Secretary Phelan told me that is essentially how he got onto this plane, that a friend of his, Jimmy Kane, who was the Bear Stearns CEO at the time, essentially asked if he wanted to hitch a ride back to New York from London with him. The close friend of Secretary Phelan says that he didn't know the plane belonged to Epstein. They'd never interacted before, and that they haven't interacted since, had not interacted since.
But I guess we don't know this for certain, but on the plane with him were 6 possible. It's possible that 6 of the people on the plane with him were ultimately victims of Jeffrey Epstein? Is that
right? That's the question. We don't know the names of these individuals, but the DOJ has said that they attempted to redact the names of potential victims or victims involved in this.
Adobe Acrobat Studio is on you.
Thanks so much. Great scoop. Let's turn to Spencer.
What can PDF spaces with AI do to a space for a contract or a few?
Lorsque Julien franchit les
complex project. Spencer, I want to get to the latest revelations in a moment, but first, let me just ask you, how are your clients doing? Because I believe one of them actually had her name revealed because the Justice Department hadn't properly redacted it.
Yes, exactly. They were aghast at the failures by the Department of Justice to just simply do their job. I represented victim number 1. This is the young girl who was brave enough at 14 years old to come forward to police in Palm Beach with her parents and report what Epstein had done. The government's known about her since the beginning of this investigation, which, by the way, the beginning of the investigation started in around 2006. And the government failed to redact her name. They've known about her since the beginning, and her name was made public in these DOJ documents, along with a second victim that I represented. So I immediately had to notify the DOJ of that failure, and thankfully that those names have been now taken down.
It's just so weird because there are redactions in these files that don't make any sense, like somebody who seems to have been with, I mean, I just saw one this morning that said something like, your littlest girl was very naughty or something like that. An email to Epstein from somebody who we don't know. That was redacted, but your client's name was accidentally not, right? I mean, do you ever think, do you think it's incompetence, or do you think there's something else going on here?
No, I think it's a combination, right? The incompetence in failing to redact the appropriate information, which would be the victims' names, is one thing. And then secondarily, I think that they're over-redacting to protect powerful, rich people that were involved in this conspiracy. And I think that's the problem.
So two other lawyers for Epstein's victims are asking a judge to force the Justice Department to take down the Epstein documents because information about victims was not redacted properly. Do you agree? Should the files be taken down, re-redacted, and then put back up?
Unfortunately, I think the cat's out of the bag, right? I mean, news agencies around the globe have already downloaded a lot of these documents, so taking them down isn't going to do anything but continue to hide information for the general public. So I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a third party that is either a federal magistrate or a third-party intermediary that can review the redactions made by the DOJ to determine whether or not they comply with the law or not. or at the very least, amend the law to put in a penalty provision so that private citizens like these victims, like my clients, could sue the DOJ for their failures.
Yeah, the law is very clear that the only redaction should be that of survivors. We have seen a slew of high-profile figures whose names have been mentioned having to answer for their newly revealed ties to Epstein. But many of the people closest to Epstein have never faced accountability for any of their actions. What does true justice look like for your clients?
True justice ultimately looks like full accountability. And the Department of Justice files that have been released now is the beginning of that accountability. And we're seeing that in the public with respect to the people who associated with Jeffrey Epstein, even long after his conviction for, going after young girls here in South Florida. But ultimately, criminal prosecution is what these young victims want. And there have been a lot of co-conspirators that they still have yet to go after and prosecute criminally, even though they have mountains of evidence to go after these co-conspirators. If you want a short list, go look at the sweetheart deal that the federal government executed with Jeffrey Epstein that attempted to give some type of immunity to the co-conspirators. Prosecute those co-conspirators that they knew of at the time.
Spencer Kuvin, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir. President Trump once again claims that he has ended 8 really, really fierce wars, including the one between Israel and Hamas. So why do we then still keep seeing images like the ones we're showing you right now coming out of Gaza just this week? That story's next.